This is Meir.
Hi.
Woo! And Adam, talk about yourself a little bit because of what you do and what makes us do what we do.
Okay. So we were supposed to have another guy here called Don McLeod, who is the actual legend in this industry.
Who wrote the book?
The first name over there. So Don, I'll start with Don so I can continue with myself. Don was actually the foremost gorilla and suit actor back in the 80s and 90s. He did all the special effects in Total Recall. He did the gorillas in Trading Places, Man with Two Brains, a bunch of other American Tourister gorilla, if you guys remember. And he made a full career out of being a gorilla and a mime. He started as a mime, worked with Marcel, and then he got a job as a gorilla, and after that it became a whole career. And then I went to study acting at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I met Don as my teacher. And we got along really well. I love mime, I did it since I was a kid. And he took me on to his company, and I started being a gorilla. And from that point on, I went on to do other special effects and costumes and movement performance. And that's what I do now. And I'm a regular actor as well, but a lot of what I do is costume work.
You know, and during the process then I studied primates and I did a lot of movies, and I worked with a primatologist. I was going to say a proctologist. Yeah, I mean, you do kind of take it in the ass.
Let's not agitate the animal.
I did Trading Places.
Loosen up, man! It's almost New Year's Eve!
The Man with Two Brains.
Dr. Beckerman? That's him, all right.
I did a lot of films.
Corporal Cod, navigation. Reporting for duty.
Zamora the gorilla on the run. Things are getting out of hand.
We did Tanya's Island.
Your eyes, they're so blue. I know. I'll call you Blue.
Animals belong in cages. Be my Ipperman girl, and we'd be so happy in my Ipman world. I'm an Ip Man, I'm an Ip Man, no, I'm an Ip Man. Why did I do this? And I'm a King Kong man, I'm a voodoo man, no, I'm an Ip Man. I don't feel safe in this world no more. I don't wanna die in a nuclear war. I wanna sail away to a distant shore and make like an Ip Man. You know they don't la 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 la.
Görüyor olabilirsiniz. Nesli tükendiği için değil. Çünkü belgesel kanallarınız yarın kapanıyor. Neyse ki ek ücret karşılığında kanallarınızı tekrar açtırabilirsiniz. Hatta açtıracaksınız. Açtıracaksınız.
when we started out with movement, you hear names like Marcel Marceau, mine was Jacques Lecoq, but in 1972, I studied with Don McLeod. And it was an amazing journey to understand what the body could do. I think you feel the same way. So if you look at Don, there were things that I learned to do that we work on specialties. Like 2 of my specialties was mime and flamenco, and at the time I had a pretty strong back. So there were things that I could do, and you could do it for a short period of time, and that's why you're here, because you never know when that photographic moment is going to happen. So let's talk about Don and Adam without their heads.
Okay.
You're more realistic because you have those brown eyes. But imagine how many blue-eyed gorillas are there, like Don?
Yeah, one.
One, and that's Don.
Okay.
So look
That's
at
why
all...
his name was Blue in Tanya's Island. Because he had blue eyes, yeah.
Oh, my, okay. Let's talk about what can happen. Is your costume hot? Is your costume heavy?
It gets up to 130, 140 degrees inside. We don't use ACs. There are some suits with ACs, but that's actually going to make you sick most of the time because it's too cold.
Swallow your mic.
Yeah, so it gets really hot inside. Usually the shoots take place in the desert, in the jungle, in the hottest areas, so it gets even hotter. Yeah, it's pretty hot. If you don't like heat, then don't do it.
How heavy is your costume when you do
It depends on each costume that you use. The gorilla is about 50 pounds. The head is about 10 pounds. And then the rest is about 40.
When you're doing the facial expressions, you have to work with somebody who understands because it's on a remote. You don't do the face, you have it coordinated.
Yes.
Explain.
So I don't know if you guys noticed that some of the time the gorilla has facial expressions like eyebrows. Looks like, I mean, the head is me, but then the facial expressions, nostrils, nose, teeth, and stuff like that is done by a remote control. And a person standing on the other side of the camera, and we have to choreograph perfect movement. If I move my hand like that, he opens the eyes. So it's a lot of choreographed moves and rehearsals to give the actual effect of the emotion that you're trying to show.
How much is the costume?
Around $60,000.
And the thing that makes this work is simple movement. Don was explaining, if Don were here now, he would say it's not about how you do this, but just the simplest movements. You want to demonstrate a little bit?
Yes, actually.
This is for you to learn because your simple movement will read volumes.
Well, the one thing is the simple movement. So Don, but the most important part is the emotion that you put behind that movement. So Don has a really famous story when he met Marcel Marceau. Marcel Marceau told him, pick a flower, pick a flower. Don went to the floor and went to the table and did, there you go, flower. I said, no, that's not how it works. What you have to do in order to pick a flower, you have to walk on down the street and you have to see a flower suddenly. And you're amazed by the flower. And you look at it from all directions, and then you pick it really slowly, and then you smell it. And then you smell, and it's a really beautiful smell. And then you walk with the flower in the street, and then you see a beautiful girl. And then you call her over. And then you put the flower in her ear, and then you kiss her hand. And then you kiss her, and she goes away, and then you pick the flower. So you have that's all in the emotion behind the one movement that you do. So, especially in costumes, when you don't have facial expressions, realistic ones that you would do, nobody sees you sad or yelling or angry or anything. It's all in the body. And that usually what sells good costume movement and amateur costume movement. When people can put on an amazing gorilla suit, for example, but then if they walk upright, everybody knows it's a person in there. If the legs are not bent the right way, they know there's a person in there. And if the arm doesn't move the right way, with the right direction between the legs and the arms, it's in the right, it's going to be not right, and especially the emotion behind it. So you gotta, I've played trees blowing in the wind, I played aliens, I played gorillas, I played birds, and every one of those things have different emotions. Even a tree has emotions. You have to be able to imagine what you would feel like as a tree in order to become like a tree. So that's that. A lot of research and watching things is really important in costume performance.
Growing up, people would say, what's the difference between mime and pantomime? And by the way, I know there's a lot of people that hate mimes, so we're going to focus more on movement. Just got to put that out there, sorry. But when it comes to pantomime, you're telling a short version, exactly what Adam talked about, brushing the teeth. But if you're telling a mime, where did the toothpaste come from? Where did the brush come from? Then when you brush your teeth, what do you do with the cap? Where do you put it? So a mime is a full, complete story, and a pantomime is like a charade. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. When we talk about simple movements, again, even something like this, or just like that, can really have some things to it. There's movement where you have no movement, and that's when you basically can do a robot. We'll get into that a little bit, but I also like one movement at a time.
Yes.
How important is it for one movement at a time?
Okay, so simple movements. If you play a robot, for example, which
Well,
you just
play
said, I just want to. Okay, I'll do it sitting. Never mind. It's okay. I'll do it with the head. So if you play a robot, for example, doing that is not going to work.
It's all over the place.
Well, yeah, it's very still, and then there's one movement. That's it. And that the one simple movement tells a huge story, instead of being like, I'm a robot. But if you just move one, and then the arm, and then the arm here, and everything moves by itself, that's. So everything that you do, isolated movements, is what sells a robot. A robot, that's not for everything, but...
Now you did something that most people don't understand, and it's called the click. And the click is based on an opposite movement against itself. So if you're gonna go, let's say, up, I'm gonna move my hand up. I don't go straight up. If you noticed what Adam did, he clicked down and then up. If I'm gonna go down, I click up, then down. If I'm gonna go, let's say, into my body, I go first out and then in. Now, if I'm gonna use more than just my hand, what I'm going to do is take and do a transition which goes this way. Now, if I wanted to do something like a puppet, imagine a ball that's gonna bounce and bounce and bounce. So what I'm doing is click, bounce. Oh, there's movement there, a sound there. And this is what you do. Again, it's a technique. It's something that I'd like you to practice. So what I'd like you to do right now, take your right arm. Just take your right arm for me. And what I want you to do is with your right arm, we're gonna go up, which means down, up first, and hold it there. Now you're gonna go down. You're gonna first go up, then down. Now what you're gonna do is bring the arm in. You're gonna go out first, out, in. And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your arm out. So which way you're gonna go? You're gonna go first in, then out. So imagine if you did this where you were going, let's say, down, up, and then even with the head. So did you notice the click when Adam did it? It's just something that you practice, and those little tiny movements are what makes it. It's not about being a contortionist. It's not about all the ballet you do. It's the very, very simple movements. Now, what happens is when we get into opposite movements and illusions, okay? We were talking about this, so you want me to, okay. So what happens is, if you're gonna do a rope, okay, what you're going to do, let's say that you're doing a cosplay character, and you have to ring somebody in. In fact, we can do it where I can pull you in. All right, here we go. So what I'm gonna do first is, and it's funny because as a mime, I don't know what's your good side, but my good side is the other way, but that's okay, I'm gonna do this. All right.
Okay, I'll do the rope. How about that? I'll pull you in.
So watch what happens. So as he pulls in.
Okay, so let me just start really quickly. A very important thing is to make sure that it's a specific thing you touch. So let's say if it's a rope, if you just do this, it's nothing.
The rope
However,
has to have weight. You just don't kind of put your hands there. So you have to think about the weight. Is it going, actually this is my better way. Is it a shoestring? Is it
together.
Right, is it a shoestring? So we're just gonna pull a shoestring. Now, see, it's like very light, like a shoestring. Now what happens is, let's get our act together here. Now what we're gonna do is if we make it heavier, you see what my body's doing? It's like I'm gonna use that really heavy movement. Now, the American way of moving that Dawn would do would be everything is here with the chest. From our sew, everything is done from the hips. So look at the difference between doing this. See, that's the American way. And now look what happens when I do it the French way. And what I'm doing is, as my hands are going in, I'm using the same amount of energy, and it's done in threes. 1, 2. You see, if my hands are in the middle, the body's in the middle. As I take this hand and I bring it over here, look what my body just did. So 1, 2, 3. Now the other thing is, I have to look at my artwork. I can't do this 1, 2, 3 because look at where's your rope? So I'm looking at my rope and I'm reaching and grabbing and using my fingers. So while you're seated, I want you to kind of get the feel of just opposite, back, opposite, back, opposite, back, opposite, back, opposite, back, boom. And now what we're gonna do is let's do the crossover. Ready? And pull, cross, over. And so there are different techniques, but the idea is that opposite. Now, I can answer your question. You want to know what happens when we do a wall, all right? So with the wall, what happens is that your hands are this way, okay? This way. Same thing, this way. It's this thing that you practice. So if you can kind of do this, this is actually a fencing move. You know, like when we were in class, it really is a fencing move. But what happens is that you bring it in. So in mime classes, we did do fencing. So again, think about the opposite movement. Even if you're just standing there, you're standing, do you guys stand in line at Comic-Con? Think about some of the opposite movements that you do. It's pretty fun. And then when you want to, if I'm all the way over here, I come to the center, and then over here, I come back. And it's fun to do it with people. Movement behind makeup. We're going to show you a couple things that you could do. You don't have makeup on, and all of a sudden, it's like, you know, like when you take that picture and they say cheese, and you look stupid because you go like this, cheese. All right, so what happens is, if you set the letter A, if you did your vowels, Don taught us this, did he teach you this?
No.
When you do the vowels, think about A. A. So say the letter A. A. Now, don't let the sound come out, but let me see your face behind your mask. All right, so it's like, and that's going to be happy. E would be afraid, where you breathe in. E. I, you cry. Oh, surprised. You're mad. So just knowing the vowels, you breathe out, you breathe in. You breathe out, you breathe in. So let's do some A-E-I-O-U's with some faces. Ready? A, E, We do it one more time, everybody? Ready? Hey. Hey. Ooh. All right, now let's do it without the sound, and I'll say it really lightly. A, E, I, O. So right there, you can practice those facial movements and loosening them and kind of getting a feel instead of, and it's fun to do because like even here at Comic-Con, a lot of people take photos, and if you're going to be dressed up in a costume, and let's say that your mask isn't working, something happens, it's okay to, you know, A, and a very comfortable A, and breathing that A, and that's going to help you in what you do. So that's movement behind makeup.
I just want to add that if, also if there's a full mask, a full costume, you can't see your face. If you do these things inside, it does affect your body. If you're playing angry, you most likely gotta do something with your body that is gonna show that too. If you're not, you know, surprised, it does translate into the body. And this is, again, costume work is pronounced movement always because you can't. There's no face, and it's most of the time not realistic, and it's a robot or a gorilla or whatever. So pronounced movements that show emotions is extremely important.
If Don were here, I'm sorry, he's not here today. If Don were here, he would tell you that you always want to practice these things ahead of time. Like as you get your costume, like how many of you have a costume or saw people with costumes and they took them out of the bags yesterday and put them on and didn't look at the costume? How many times, Adam, have you talked with your costume so you could develop a relationship? You will do so well if you can put your costume on a hanger and get an idea. Because one of the things that we do, and here's another thing you're going to do, is you have to believe in what you're doing. So let's talk about a dog. On your lap is a little teeny tiny dog, and I would like you to pet that little teeny tiny dog. And it's got a movement to it, and it has a feel to it, right? And it does all kind of cute little things, and you kind of look stupid while you're doing this, but you have this movement. Now, what happens if this dog becomes a German Shepherd, right? And it's just big, and so what you do is you get into believing in what you're doing. If you can believe it, you can see it, and this is so important when you are doing this, especially as you get into your character. Now, one thing about Adam has two sets of arms. As a gorilla, you've got the long ones.
Yes.
And so talk about that.
So there's a real gorilla has way longer arms than a human being. So if you walk around as a gorilla, you have arm extensions, which are like arm stilts. And there's another set of arms, which is short ones, so I can grab things. Some arms long ones can also grab things, but in order to be able to do regular movements, pick up a leaf and all that, you need the shorter arms. And then, so with the longer arms, you have to learn also how to walk with it. You have to understand how to move with it. It's weird. If you stand up like straight, then the arm will reach all the way here. So if you just walk around like that, it's not going to work. You have to get into the gorilla. I don't know if you can see me.
Come up here. I'll hold your chair.
You have so. What am I trying to explain?
Your length of your arms.
Yeah. So the arms will hold the gorilla straight, like that, and then the movements are crossed. To know what you're working with, and you have to understand the length of things. Like an alien can have long fingers like that. You have to be able to make them your own in order for them to look realistic.
The other thing is how long a period of time can you work as a gorilla? Because I've seen some people work in a costume and they're ready to pass out. How long can you work in your suit?
Well, at this point I can work pretty long, but the rule of thumb is you don't do more than half hour in the suit at a time. So these shoots take a long time. I mean, it gets hot, again, 130 degrees inside. There's really hard to breathe. If you can see the mouth over there, it's all closed. There's no air coming in except from the mouth when you open it. So you're breathing in your own carbon dioxide, and then you pass out if you're not used to it. So about 15 minutes to 30 minutes, that's it. You're gonna get out of the costume for 10 to 15 minutes, and then you go back in, do another couple of shots. It's physically demanding.
Would you ever put that costume on without stretching and warming up?
No, I wouldn't, even though he warms you up in a minute. But yeah, it's heavy, it affects every part of it. Don has problems now that he did 40 years with gorillas, and he has neck issues and
He's
back issues.
77 years old, by the way.
Yeah,
Don.
73.
It was
73.
73. Oh,
73.
don't tell him I said that. 73.
Yeah, it can give you a lot of problems if you don't do it properly.
Some of the best exercises you can do when you're standing in line, just don't stand in line while you're waiting. You want to kind of move, and a good thing to do is to think pendulum. A lot of times you'll see me standing, and I'm kind of, might look sort of, but just to be able to have this swinging also this way. You know, if you're going to be sitting here on your back and then you start to put your body while you're waiting, and this comes out and this comes out, and then all of a sudden you just kind of want to know, why is my back hurting? Just try to get that pelvis to come in, and that's really important in your costume. So even something as lifting your hand, and you can try this. Look at the difference if I'm sitting down and I wave to somebody and I don't use my movement, and the difference between like a ball. It's like a ball is going from my chest and then into my arm and out. And that movement is gonna read. So imagine if I had a costume on and all of a sudden it's like, and you could just and they're very simple movements, and they really feel good because you're using it. Again, if you're doing something like a pendulum, and I know what some of you might be thinking, I'll see if I can do it over here. Even if I'm doing, let's say, well, Adam, come down here. Let's see what your mime walk looks like, and let's see what mine looks like. I'll do a French mime walk going straight, and then we'll kind of do it that way. So, all right, so you can do that one and I'll do this one. And what happens is that I'm doing opposite movements. One knee is up, one foot is down. What I'm going to do is one foot comes down and the other one goes back. Okay? So that's where I'm at now. One foot is now going to come to the front, and that opposite movement's going to take place. So if I'm doing a mime walk, I'm doing opposite movements. Now, if I do it this way, the way that you did, again, it's opposite movement. One foot is up, one foot is down. This foot goes back, this knee is gonna go forward. Bloop, like what Michael Jackson did. Okay, so if I were to do Michael Jackson's walk, what I'm doing is opposite movement, and I try to keep my head still so I don't look like I'm bouncing, okay? And it's opposite. So if one foot is out, that we're going to change. One foot goes back, the other knee comes out, and I follow through. Now, some of you saw the moonwalk, and it was the placement of that foot. So if I'm here, instead of coming back to where I started, I'm just going to go a little bit further back. Marceau taught that to Michael Jackson. Go ahead.
It's hard. It's hard floor, so it's a sticky floor here. But it's impossible to do it here. Sorry.
It's not easy to do.
It's hard.
But movement is fun. It's really fun to do. And the fact that you know, if you're with little kids and they're crying and they're screaming and you kind of like, oh, and you get into one movement at a time, it's amazing how the body reads. Check your costume for malfunctions. If you get in that costume and the zipper quite ain't working and you go to your friend and you say, here, zip me up, and all of a sudden you feel, chances are that the minute you go, it's going to do a number on you. You want to be able to check things. If your costume is too tight, grab a steamer and just steam different parts of it, and those fibers will loosen up, okay? Especially when you get into things where if you have a waist costume and the zipper has to go between one piece and the other, and you know how you're trying to work that? Good little tool is grab a hammer and grab her on each side and bang the fabric, and that'll get your zipper to go up. All right? So just, well, that's what happens when you work at Cirque du Soleil in the wardrobe. So, shoes. I can't tell you how many times I see people at Comic-Con, and they've got these fabulous costumes, but they didn't go to the thrift store for $2 to get a pair of shoes that they could spray paint and decorate. And I look at shoes that are either going to be your Converse shoes. People are looking at you from head to toe. Those shoes will do great things. What do you do at Comic-Con? Are you looking at people's faces all the time? No, sometimes you have to look down. And if you see some really cool shoes, it's pretty neat when the whole costume comes together. So take a good look at this. Not a bag, huh? But look at Don now. He will use only his body in performing. And look at this gorgeous face. From this to this. In the beginning, and look at that, can you see the weight? And look at what he does to get ready ahead of time. Crazy, huh? All right, you tell me if this is real or not real. Is it real or not real? Is it Adam? What makes you think it's real? What about this? Not real? No. Who says not real? It's real. I was kidnapped by mimes. They did unspeakable things to me. And remember, a waist is a terrible thing to mime. I'm going to put the contact in for Adam. And we have this, Don has a book called Gorilla Tales. Do you have any questions of anything? Again, it's not that we were going to take you and give you these full-on mime classes, but if you can just remember an opposite technique or working with the arm, even if you're in line working on a couple of things, we want to see you so dynamic so that when you are, let's say, on the wall and you're in your costume and maybe you pose one way, do an opposite thing and go the other way. So you have different choices in what you're doing. You have a question, Heidi?
Does Disney invest in their characters, the ones that Disney invest? It was kind of
Disney and Universal Studios?
Yeah, you know, they are very, very particular in, I mean, every movement and sound and piece of their costume is copyrighted, including the movements. People cannot just, Chewbacca cannot just walk around and do this. Cannot.
What about the characters at Disneyland?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The Disneyland characters have to learn all the actual approved movements for every character. They cannot do anything else.
You have a choreographer. And like if you're in the butterfly parade, the electrical parade, I remember back when I was doing it, and we had a choreographer, so it's not like you just get out there because you have to work with other people. And the big key to that is safety. You all want to go one way and you all want to go back. And the rehearsals were pretty grueling, you know, but then when you get out there and you get that adrenaline, you know, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
But they don't really teach you any movement.
No, they won't teach you movement, you just have to know. Yeah.
I got one for you, Adam. What about when you're working with other people who would be doing the practical effects, such as if there's like particular things like in one of the mech suits or something that have to open up in a certain way and other like puppeteers? How do you coordinate things with them when you're doing things inside these kind of costumes?
You mean
the other practical effects that they would do? Like if other things are going to move around that would be out of your control, like where you'd be inside it and there's also a puppeteer for other effects.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this is a lot of choreography, practice, and rehearsals to be able to do everything. A lot of, there's no good vision, for example, in the gorilla or any of the costumes for that matter. And you have to do crazy things like jump off cliffs and jump into cars and run, and you gotta be able to muscle memory everything and kind of do it blind. So you just practice a lot, rehearse over and over and over, and then you hope for good.
Do you want to talk about your award that you got in the latest films that you've been in? I'm
Well,
so
I
proud of
think
you.
there's, well, it's not an award, it's more like a film I did, I'm sure you guys have seen it, or maybe not. It's The Bad Trip on Netflix. There's a crazy gorilla there that I'm not going to talk about. It's the rowdiest, most vile gorilla scene of all history of cinema. And it was #1 on Netflix. And I just finished actually a film with George R.R. Martin that I can't really talk about yet. But next year, what's that? No, we finished it. I literally get that question every single time. You can ask him, he's right here on the other, what is he over there outside? No, that's going to be amazing. I mean, he put a lot of effort in this one, himself, alone, so he's going to finish this one, for sure. And, yeah.
Don't forget to breathe. So many times you hold a breath and you just forget to breathe and then you pass out. The other thing that can happen is it's called stiff leg, and it looks like this, where you're standing and you lock your knees and then all of a sudden you feel like you want to pass out. You always want to give yourself, even though you're standing straight, you want to give yourself a little bit of movement. Okay, this is super, super important because that'll make somebody from falling over to just the fact, and loosen your hips. You gotta constantly work this, especially as you get older. It's really important to keep this, my favorite saying, lotion is motion. Motion is lotion. So you really want to keep that going on you. The other thing is, y'all know about 3 parts. So for me to stand up on the chair, I'm not just gonna go whoop like this because I take a risk. So I'm not gonna do it in 3s, like a climber. The foot is here, the 2 hands are here, and then I can stand up. When I come down, just don't go whoop, that's not good to do. You know, you could fall down and get hurt. So make it a point to do things in 3s, and you can do that very gracefully. Also, if you're gonna be sitting in a chair, like if you're doing something and you wanna be just where you know where the chair is, practice knowing where that chair is and feel it. Just don't go bloop, because you never know where it is. So all these little tiny things have to be practiced, okay? Any other questions?
Yeah.
Do the techniques you described here today apply to a wide variety of costumes? I assume they're not just for robots.
Yeah, no, that's just the general for every costume.
For every costume.
One thing that I just want to mention that really helps if you, whatever you play, let's say, sorry, I don't know exactly what it is, but if you put on a mask, if you go to Hollywood Toys and Costumes or any toy store and you get a $2 mask, it gives you a lot of freedom to hide behind the mask and do whatever you want. So if you want to practice big, large movement and be somebody that you are not, which is most of the time if you do costume work, you are playing somebody who you are not, and you're going to move differently than how you would have moved, that really liberates the soul. Somehow the brain thinks nobody sees you, and then you can do whatever you want. So that really helps. And yeah, it's for everything, really.
When I worked at Cirque, we went, our first show, Meir, which was in Las Vegas, it was about an $8 million show. It was the mothership show. And as they started to grow with new ideas in O and get to CA was $100 million. And it hit them in the head where they said, you know what really makes the performances? The talent. It's the people. You can sit there and have something on a wall upside down, inside out, but when you can really understand your character and appreciate a person's talent, it's amazing that that's what's going to drive you through. You could be in a little teeny tiny circus and watch somebody be brilliant. And I'll tell you something else, tell me if I'm wrong, and I've said this once and I'll say it 100 times, and it is what it is. Some of the greatest performances that we've had have been in rehearsal. We've been in situations where you might have performed and you thought, and nobody saw it. And it was just for you. And then when you get out there on stage, it's not that you hold back, but you have to remember this word, safety. Okay, because the last thing you need is a camera to catch you. So you really want to have control in what you do. Go ahead, Adam, I'm going to let you wrap this up. Are there any other questions?
Any questions? Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite things that you've done work-wise? Like, what was your favorite?
Well, that film I just finished. It was literally the best thing I've ever done in my life. And hopefully you will all be able to see
Okay,
it.
does he
When
get a
you
round of
finish
applause
it.
for that one?
I don't know yet. Yeah, I did a film in Turkey with a gorilla actually, playing the lead role as the gorilla, which is weird. But yeah, that was really fun. I mean, everywhere where they let you do whatever you want to do and they trust you that you know better, then there are some directors like, I want the gorilla to be constantly angry and attacking. It's like, did you ever see a gorilla? They're the calmest animals in the world. They don't attack anybody. If they do, it's for 2 seconds, run over and then stop and move back. Anyway, so when they let you do your thing and trust you, that's the best. I mean, Bad Trip was. Have you seen it? Okay.
Now you're all going to go on
Well,
Bad Trip, right?
That was fun. That was really fun. Yeah, I don't know. I really like everything. Every one of these type of things I do is all of them are unique, all of them are different, and they're all fun. Any other questions? No more questions. Yes.
What's something you'd like to see done with more tech inside some of the suits and performances, with things being evolved with the mix of stagecraft and other such things like that?
What other things technically would you want to see inside of your costume? Air conditioner?
No, I don't like these. Just more and more movement that you can control. So it's more and more realistic. Skin twitches, more lip movement. Just more tech in the realistic look of the behavior of the face, for example.
Ooh, maybe like tiny mocap that can then reinitialize itself on the outside.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, now they used to be only practical effects, then they moved to only CGI, and then they realized that was fake, so now they combine the two. They usually get the animals, the costumes to do the full thing, and then they add CGI on top of it if they need something that the costume cannot do. That's great.
Did you have fun? Was it good? Woo!